Hi everyone, it's Em, otherwise known as Gazette Girly, and either welcome or welcome back to my channel where I mostly talk about zines, which are handmade magazines. So we're starting off again with the zines that I've made each month series, except obviously this time it's for the year 2026. Congratulations, we made it all to the new year, despite the fact it is also now March because I just have not had the time or energy to film anything in January or February. And I'm gonna be real, I did not make any new zines in February at all, but I did get the latest issue of Gazette for the Girls printed, so I thought I'd share that with you instead. But we're gonna be kicking off this video with the zines I made in January, so let's get into it. The first zine I made in January is this one here, and this is called Endings. And the inspiration from this actually came from someone I was casually dating for a little bit, kind of from like November to early January. Then they came over and kind of like ended things, which was completely fine. Like there's no ill will. This isn't like intense trauma or heartbreak or anything. We're still friends. It is all good. But it just kind of got me thinking about endings and how like dynamics can shift with people you know and even like tangible objects as well. And then it kind of creates like an ending because how you've known something has now shifted and that dynamic has now ended and it's changed into something else. And the front and back cover of the zine is actually a scan of a plate I managed to break, and it was kind of like, oh, like the relationship I have with this plate has now ended because it's broken, so it kind of doesn't serve its like original function and stuff like that. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to like fit that in here as well. And I'm gonna be real, that sounds pretentious as fuck and I'm sorry about that. But I started off this zine because I was actually using some washi tape to create these nice floral borders, because even if the zine's cover is in black and white, I will just need a little pop of colour in there. I will need some flowers. It needs to be me. But then my roll of washi tape ran out whilst I started this, and I was like, oh, there's kind of like a little, is it an oxymoron or juxtaposition? One of those terms that I cannot remember what it means, but I just thought it was fun. So I started off the zine by saying my roll of washi tape ended when I started making this zine, with the last remains of her. I'm also a massive Doctor Who nerd, and the Doctor Who season finales, whilst the recent ones have been absolute garbage, the ending of Doomsday I consider to be my first experience of heartbreak. So I decided to definitely encapsulate that within this zine. And I also not only wanted to explore like endings with like people or objects, but also kind of think about endings with like media I've consumed as well, and like what endings have kind of stood out to me. And the ending of Doomsday is definitely like left a prominent lasting impression on my brain forever. And then I scanned in this journal entry that I wrote as well, which is kind of about the abruptness of endings and kind of how I feel like we don't talk about friendship breakups or friendships ending enough as well. And I wrote, some endings happen so unexpectedly that there is so little time to even process them. One day someone takes up so much force in your life, and then another day they're gone. I think we need to explore friendship breaks up more too. In my experience, friendships ending tend to hurt me even more than romantic relationships ending. However, platonic love has always held more meaning for me than romantic love. Your friends become such permanent fixtures in your village, whereas in my romantic life, romantic love has always been unstable, fleeting. It comes and goes and never feels that solid. I've almost always expecting endings there. The love I feel for friends has always had such an intensity. I truly can't imagine a life without this person in it. That if a friendship ends, the heartbreak feels infinitely more unbearable. Gonna be real, reading that out loud, this needs to be edited a bit, but it is what it is, and that's kind of why I love zines. They're so like authentic, so like a lot of the times I will literally put the first draft in my zine and like only go through it if there's like a glaringly obvious typo. But yeah, so that's just kind of me exploring like the differences between friendships and romantic love ending, just from my personal experiences as well. And also like my mind can change, so in a few years I might not feel this way as well, but that's how I felt when I wrote this journal entry. And then in terms of media consumption, I believe the perfect series ending is Fleabag. I love that they didn't decide to continue this series on, even if it was gaining popularity. It put like so much respect to the characters and to the narrative, and I wouldn't want another series of Fleabag. And I feel like some shows do this thing where there's like a really good series ending and the entire show could have kind of wrapped up and finalized there, but they decide to keep going to kind of push this engagement or push the views and stuff, and it just kind of loses the magic of the show as well. So I have a lot of respect for shows that decide to end when they know they need to end and don't decide to continue just for the sake of engagement, you know? And then I put so many endings start and finish with doors, and then I drew a really bad door. I might go over this with some pens so you can actually see it properly. And it's kind of like the way like the person I was casually dating like kind of came in, you know, through the door and then came out, like left through the door, and like that dynamic had just changed. So I kind of like the idea of doorways kind of leading to endings. And then I wrote a very emotional and pretty personal piece called Endings That Don't End. And this is kind of about pet loss I've experienced around this time last year, well, like February last year. Our dog Willow unfortunately was put down, and my pet hamster Alaska also passed away. He was pushing like 2.5, he was almost 3 years old. He was an old man hamster, so it wasn't super unexpected, but it was still just as heartbreaking. And I used to have pet rats called Mimi and Lola. Mimi I did have to get put down as well due to some very intense respiratory issues she had. And then Lola I gave away to a rodent rescue so she could be rehomed, which she was. She's like, I don't know if she's still with us now, but she was living a good like life when she was rehomed. This is quite long, so I'm not going to read this one out, but I do have it on my Substack, which I will link down below. And then I kind of wrote like different sort of like messages that kind of implement things ending. So like, this isn't working for me anymore. I don't think we should see each other. We're over. I have some news. I'm really sorry, but I can't see this going anywhere. We're better as friends. And then also shifting from like a friendship dynamic into a possible relationship dynamic, and the kind of friendship ending, but maybe the nervousness about a romantic relationship starting. And so things like, we'd be really good together. I want a relationship with you. I love you. And then I found this like interesting quote, which is also really long, so I'm just gonna link it in the description, from like a philosopher's magazine, and it was kind of on like about endings and death, and like endings can sometimes be good as well. They can be very cathartic. Sometimes things just run their course and they need to end too, and like everything in life, it begins and it ends, and that's just like the natural cycle of life, and I believe we need to respect that a little bit more. And then I put some last lines of poems I've written. She knows she is passing on stories of the real. What could be on the other side? At my collarbones and set myself free. Is everything? No, never her. These are just literally last lines from some random poems I've written that I kind of just sporadically put on this page. And then whilst making this zine, I had So Much for My Happy Ending by Avril Lavigne in my head. So I just kind of decided the last page should acknowledge that. And then the end with another scan of the broken plate. This scan I was kind of moving the plate about, so that's why it kind of has like this kind of liquidized droopy effect as well. But that is the first zine I made in January. This was also like a little different for me. It feels a bit more edgy in a way, a little less colourful and a bit more kind of like a think piece zine, whereas usually the zines I make are like a bit more fun, I guess, and a bit more collagey, whereas this is like, I used Canva a lot in this for like the graphics as well. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to just kind of experiment a bit with a different zine style. So yeah, that is endings. The second zine I made in January was obviously at one of Artizines at workshop, and that is this amazing hand-shaped zine here. She comes up with so many amazing new ways to fold zines, and this was us kind of like tracing around our hands and then like cutting out where the fold was, so it creates this kind of open hand spread. This was kind of exploring like what I feel like my hands are for and like what comes out of them as well. So this is like the back of my palm, and I kind of like the idea like there's kind of like a third eye in the middle of your palm, and I wrote magic love as well. I kind of wanted this to be very whimsy, and I've kind of used like some material to create like little rings on the hands too, because I love wearing rings, and then I kind of use stamps to put let's hold hands in like different parts of the fingers, and then we've got all these eyes, and I found a little hand hole punch at the workshop, so I thought it'd be really cute to stamp that here, and it's kind of like the idea of magic like flying off your fingertips. I'm quite witchy and I really like that as well, and also like holding hands with someone, it's like very intimate too. And yeah, I just it was kind of an interesting way to use zine making to explore touch and how I actually relate to my hands. And then this is the other side. This was so fun to make. I was literally just like cutting up and like ripping up loads of different textured papers and just collaging on this, and it was just very cathartic to make this. And so I wrote love, poem, storytelling, and then here I put open as well. And then we've got like dancing with images, so it's kind of like the idea of you drawing or writing is like the way your hand dances to create different images. I also really like writing and reading poetry, and I write a lot, so it's kind of like storytelling. And then just the idea of like holding hands being like a symbol of love. And then I wrote out stars in my palm because this idea like your hands are like magic and magic comes through them, and it's kind of like your hands create art. They create like movement. I feel like we undervalue how much we use our hands as well. I used to be a trained massage therapist, and I was very big on hand massages because we're like on our hands all day, and we just kind of like, I don't know, can be a bit neglectful of them. Like we don't really think of how important they are. And I feel like we need to put a little bit more respect on the hands. So that was the second zine I made in January. Now in February I got the latest issue of Gazette for the Girls printed, which was the play issue. And also kind of like later on this year I realized it's been 2 years since I started Gazette for the Girls, and I've already got the new theme cooking up. She's brewing. I'm thinking of maybe doing some like format changes, maybe making it like a bigger, like thicker zine, but then it's also the stress that if I do that, printing is going to cost me a significantly higher amount, so I would have to increase the price of the zine, and I kind of feel a bit unsure about that. But anyway, this is the play issue. So this was exploring girlhood through play and how you related experiences of play to your girlhood. And I'm gonna be real, I think this is like one of my all-time favorite Gazette for the Girls issue ever. And we also had Isabella, Cool Girl Makes Zines, who I'm going to link her account down below. She did like this amazing interview for the zine, and I was also interviewed. And it's kind of like she asked different artists about like how play relates to their creative practice and like how they bring in play to their artwork too. We had some brilliant poetry. It's just like everything in this zine was just so gorgeous. I'm also just really happy with the layout. I was really struggling to format this article, so thank you Isabella too for helping me with the layout for your piece as well. Having a second eye sometimes when you're just staring at a screen of your own work, or like you're like formatting something yourself for so long, it can like be so helpful. Yeah, but this is also out on my Ko-fi store, and I've also actually got some copies of this in Solo Craft Fair, which is an independent gift store in Elephant and Castle and Leadenhall Market. So that is the zine I made of February. Well, the zine, I made this in January, I got it printed in February. But I'm kind of counting this as February's zine because it's the only one that came out in February. Yeah, so those are all the zines I made in January and February. I'm also not zine related, but workshop related. I'm going to be hosting a New Beginnings vision boarding workshop on the 21st of March at Solo Craft Fair Leadenhall. The ticket links are down below. This is going to be a super chill environment, and because it's spring equinox, I feel like it's actually the perfect time to really start vision boarding, because you know, you're kind of coming out of hibernation, you're waking up a bit, your brain's ready to go, and it's just going to be a fun, really laid back environment. I'm going to have loads of fun collage supplies too, some like prompts going on because I love making prompts for people. So yeah, it would be great to see you there. But that is the end of this video, and thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.